Do you need to live in Korea in order to learn Korean or not?
Is it necessary?
You do not have to live in Korea at all to learn Korean to a good level.
If you want to really learn how to speak Korean, there's really nothing that can replace actually living in Korea.
Welcome back to another episode of A Glass with Billy. Today I have a slightly different guest with me, Sean Pablo.
What's up, everybody? 안녕하세요, 여러분.
He makes videos where he talks with Korean people and explains culture in Korean a lot.
Dating culture too.
Dating culture, interacting with Koreans. Today we actually have a different style of video that I wanted to do, which is a debate.
Wow.
Do you need to live in Korea in order to learn Korean or not?
Is it necessary?
Is it required, or can you just live in your own country and still learn Korean to a good level? I'm gonna be playing the side of you do not have to live in Korea at all to learn Korean to a good level. And Sean's side is,
if you want to really learn how to speak Korean, there's really nothing that can replace actually living in Korea.
Okay, so some of these opinions we're sharing might be a bit more extreme than what we actually feel, but I figured that through doing this, we'll give you guys two sides of the coin.
We're gonna do a little role playing.
First of all, since this is A Glass with Billy, I've got, I think it's like mango?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, mango
with a green tea base.
And what do you have?
녹차. Cheers.
I talk with a lot of people who are studying Korean who don't live in Korea. In fact, the most people who are learning Korean aren't living in Korea. And they ask me, hey, Billy, can I get fluent in Korean if I don't live in Korea? While I think, of course it's helpful, I would say that you don't have to, because you can still study grammar books no matter whether you're sitting in a desk in Korea or sitting in your desk at home. When it comes to studying with a book or talking with a pen pal on the internet, it doesn't matter where your location is.
Okay. While I agree that books are super necessary in order to get the fundamentals down and really learn the grammar and stuff, the way you really learn a language to fluency is by speaking it habitually and very often. Like speaking 10 hours a week for 30 weeks. That's gonna really make you get better. By living in Korea, you're surrounded by Koreans and Korean friends that you're able to play board games with, watch movies, eat food with, and that's gonna make the whole process a lot easier.
So easier, yes, but necessary, well,
Yeah.
I would think not.
All right.
When I was studying Japanese before I learned Korean, I wasn't living in Japan at all. But when I went to Japan and I talked with people, many people told me my Japanese is very good.
Oh, really?
For example, grammar. I have several friends who are living in Korea right now, and they don't study any grammar through books, but they just live in Korea and they can't speak Korean very much at all.
All right, well, let's put it this way. If I live across the street from a gym, that doesn't mean I have to go to the gym, but it makes going to the gym and working out a million times easier, right? Same thing with living in Korea. If you're unmotivated to put the work in, because you have to put the work in, you're not gonna get better. But by living in Korea, it's right in front of your face. You're gonna take 3 years to get to an intermediate level, whereas if I live there and I'm talking to people every day, it's gonna take me 6 months.
Interesting point, but you're forgetting one very important
What's
thing.
that?
How are you going to learn Korean without still sitting down and doing the essential grammar work?
Okay, but riddle me this. Are you able to become a really fluent Korean speaker without speaking to native Koreans? Is that possible for you?
Without speaking to native Koreans, it would be quite difficult.
Of course, you can speak to them on the phone or through some kind of language exchange app, but you're still speaking with native Koreans. So I can't deny that you need to use books to get to a certain level where you can make sentences and stuff. You need books for that. But you also need native Koreans that are living in Korea in order to become a better speaker.
Well, tell me this. How about when it comes to reading and writing? I would consider that being able to read and write in Korean is also an aspect of being fluent or being able to speak in it.
I would agree.
How would you learn how to read and write Korean except by using books?
I would argue, and this is my core belief, I believe that when you learn a language, speaking is the most important thing. You look at Korea right now, or a lot of other countries that study English just for the sake of taking tests. Does that really help them learn how to speak and communicate, which is the point of language, with living, breathing human beings that don't speak your language? Not really.
Fair point. I don't think we're done though.
Another thing I want to say is that language is really like a muscle. Just like a muscle. If you don't use it and it stays dormant for too long, you can study Korean in LA, in US, in whatever country you live in, but you're gonna get busy. There's gonna be those times when you have to do this project for work, or study for your final at school, or you're going traveling in Europe and you're not going to use Korean for months on end. And in these cases, your Korean is really going to suffer if you don't live in Korea.
But still, I would say that someone truly motivated to learn Korean will still find ways to study. For example, maybe they have to take a trip to Italy for work, but they could still study while they're in their hotel.
But I think like studying in your hotel, isn't that kind of boring? And motivation is important, you know? Like you're gonna bore yourself when you're on vacation in Italy.
That's a fair point. Okay, so we both understand that you, of course, need to spend lots of time on your own studying and practicing Korean
And using books.
Yeah, but at the same time, you also need to get lots of exposure to Korean. And the best way to get exposure to Korean is, of course,
Speaking with Koreans and going to Korea.
living in Korea is
Yeah.
obviously the best way to do that. While there are people who have learned Korean outside of Korea, and you can learn, like I learned some Japanese outside of Japan, that's not the most common way that it happens.
Right.
And I would say it even takes more effort to learn outside of a situation where you get to interact with Koreans than it would be
tough.
to learn.
Yeah.
You probably know lots of people who live in Korea who don't speak a word of Korean.
Right, that's another good point.
Yeah.
Even though you're living in Korea, that doesn't mean you're automatically like a sponge, can just soak in Korean and just learn it automatically. Wake up one day and be like, wow, I'm fluent. That doesn't happen either. So you have to put in the work either way.
Before I went to Korea, obviously, I was studying Korean, and I spent several hours a day just learning the language, and I thought I was learning pretty well. But then as soon as I got to Korea, that's when I really think I started to learn. And only 3 or 4 months after I'd been living in Korea, I was able to have basic conversations with people, which would have never happened had I just stayed in the United States.
Not to mention, there are like pockets all around the world of Koreans. And if you go to these places like Koreatown, we're actually in LA right now, in Koreatown. So you can find Korean speakers really anywhere you go. There's Korean speakers in Japan, China, Europe, London, England, US, all over. Yeah.
Maybe try to see if there's a small Korean community either in your area or in a large city next to where you are. Because really just being in as much of a Korean environment as possible is going to give you a boost.
Here's the best thing too about living in Korea. I don't really use a book to study anymore. I just watch TV, hang out with my friends, make videos. The other day I had a meeting and the meeting was all in Korean. I'm just living my life and my Korean is just improving automatically. It's like two birds, one stone. 일석이조, right?
Even if you decided one day, I don't want to study any more Korean, I don't like this language anymore,
Yeah.
you would still be forced to use Korean just being in Korea. Like you would be
Right.
learning Korean whether you like to or not.
Right, that's
at
the
that
coolest
point.
thing, yeah.
Whereas if you don't get yourself integrated into the Korean culture and Korean people, then that won't happen. You could live in Korea and not learn any Korean.
Right. Don't be that person. Don't live here for 10 years and not know a lick of Korean. Please don't.
So that's why you can sometimes have people who aren't studying Korean but still get to a decent level of Korean. So it's that kind of natural way of learning Korean, which is great, but you can only do it in Korea.
I agree.
I agree too. So the conclusion is, if you can, visit Korea. The next best thing would be to explore Korean communities around your area, whether that's Koreatown, if you have one next to your city.
If you guys come to Korea, I'll recommend you some really good restaurants. I got you guys.
Anyway, so what are your opinions? What do you think? Do you have to live in Korea to learn Korean, or is it not necessary to learn Korean? Let me know in the comments. Also check out Sean's channel. I have a link to that in the description. Thank you everyone for coming. I'll see you guys next time.
그럼 다음에 또 봐.